Dating is never easy, but it's particularly hard if you're an introvert. Putting yourself out there and dating someone new is the opposite of what we actually want to be doing. Sitting at home in front of our TV, binge watching a show, in our sweatpants, alone, in complete silence. All right, that's what we want to be doing. But if you want to find a companion, someone to spend your time with, you want to find love, right? You have to get uncomfortable. I posted a video a few weeks ago on my channel with my husband Quasi, and we answered some questions about what it's like being in an introvert and extrovert relationship. He is the definition of an extrovert, by the way. And a lot of people were commenting, asking how we met, what it was like for me dating as an introvert. So in today's video, I want to talk to you guys about dating as an introvert, how we can avoid some of that awkwardness and the anxiety and the pressure that we put on ourselves. But before we get started, I just want to quickly introduce myself. My name is Bridget. On this channel, I talk a lot about introverts, social anxiety, general anxiety. So if any of that interests you, make sure you go check out some of my other videos as well. With that being said, let's get into the video. The first thing I want to talk about is the amount of pressure that we actually put on ourselves. Regardless if you're an introvert or an extrovert, I think everyone puts a lot of pressure on themselves when they're getting into the dating scene. It can be very intimidating. And we put that pressure on ourselves in order to be this perfect version of this other person wants us to be, right? Or what the world wants us to be, what our friends or family want us to be. And honestly, what I can tell you is that, first of all, perfect doesn't exist. And second of all, when we do put that pressure on ourselves in order to look a certain way or act a certain way, it actually makes us look worse, right? And the person can definitely tell you're putting on a facade. And even worse, later down the relationship, if, things do come to fruition, your whole personality is a lie. You're pretending to be this person now, and it's like, this wasn't the person that I met in the beginning. When I put too much pressure on myself to be this perfect version, it always ends in me letting myself down, right? I set these high expectations for myself, not even just in dating, but just in like life in general. If I'm going to some kind of event, meeting new people, I have to look perfect. I have to sound perfect. I have to say the right thing. And when I build all of that energy up, when it comes to performing, instead of acting out that perfect version of myself, I'm messing up in every single way possible. The more pressure we put on ourselves to be perfect or to perform a certain way, the worse we're actually going to be. And so relating this back to dating, I remember when I first met Quasi, I had that intention. My intention was to be the perfect version of what he wanted me to be. I remember wanting to say all of the right things. When he was asking me questions, I was like, what is it that he wants to hear, And this is gonna be so stupid. But I remember he asked me, like what my favorite artist was at the moment. And I said Hannah, which is a very like small artist. I don't even know a lot of people that know him. I mean, maybe now, but he thought I was trying to say Rihanna. And he's like, are you trying to say Rihanna? And I was like, oh my God, that failed. Because that totally wasn't my artist. That was just like something that popped into my head. And I was thinking, oh, he's going to think that I'm cool and quirky and I don't listen to the things that everyone else listens to. No, it ended up in a failure. Regardless, when we take off that pressure from ourselves and just do whatever it is that we normally do, it's easier. Don't try to be perfect because it'll never happen. Just be yourself, be curious, listen, talk about the things that you're actually interested in. The second thing I want to talk about is really just jumping off the last point about not having those high expectations. Don't have any expectations going into it. Whether it's you going out to potentially meet somebody or going on a first date with somebody, release all the expectations that you have. And I talk about expectations so frequently because it's been such a hard thing for me. When I set expectations for something and it doesn't go the way I planned, then I'm just left with this feeling of like, ugh, that sucked, or I can't believe I messed up, or I can't believe I sounded like that, or said that, or looked like that. Just don't have any expectations. And I know that's really hard because we as humans, that's how we thrive, how we function. We need to know things. So if we tell ourselves this is what's going to happen, it kind of releases that anxiety a little bit. But in the end, it just creates more anxiety because if it doesn't go exactly how you wanted, or if the expectations of this person are not met, you might be potentially losing out on a great person. Another part of that is when it comes to just like meeting people, right? Because I think that's a really tricky part, especially for introverts, actually going out and finding someone that we could potentially date. Don't set any expectations when you're going to meet somebody, because you might meet that person anywhere, at the coffee shop, when you're on the train, right? When you're taking a walk outside, maybe when you're at the bar with your friends, right? You never really know when that person is going to come. Third thing that's super important and has been really helpful as far as dating for me, picking a place for your first date or second date or third date doesn't really matter. Pick a place where you're comfortable, right? So if you're the kind of person that is not going to be super comfortable chatting with a stranger at a restaurant or at a bar, because it's, it tends to be overstimulating for us introverts, do something that's more comfortable for you, where you're maybe at your most talkative, your most relaxed, where you don't feel some of that pressure. So going to like an event, a comedy show, maybe it's doing an activity like Dave and Buster's, or I don't know, something like that. Like that's where I would feel most comfortable. There's not so much of that like one-on-one questioning. It's the casual getting to know them, but you're also doing an activity that kind of takes your mind off of what's actually happening. I also like to go to places, like as far as first dates go, where maybe some of your friends are too, right? So doing like a double date or a triple date, or just having friends around in general. I'm the most comfortable when there's other conversations happening as well. It just relieves some of that pressure for me. So go wherever you are most comfortable. The next thing I want to talk about is the actual conversation. So if it's not your first date and if it's not that awkward, just simply getting to know each other, and it's maybe your second or third date and you want to have some more conversation that'll kind of stimulate the rest of the night and get to know each other, but not like get rid of that awkwardness. I like having just go-to questions that I like to ask, or just topics of interest that are current and relevant to my life right now. So if it's something that I read in a book, something that I saw on the news, that I heard on a podcast, or some TV shows that I'm watching, having those at your disposal is really easy when the conversation goes silent and you need something to fill in the gap. That's probably one of the worst things on a date, when there's that awkward silence and you're not really sure who's going to talk first and you're kind of just waiting it out. So have those conversation starters, those questions that you might want to ask them. I don't know, if they mention something on the first date, asking them more about that. And, sometimes the conversations can be endless when you pick just one topic, and you'd be surprised, maybe that person's also into it. So having that at your disposal is really helpful when it comes to filling in that silence. The last thing I want to talk about is finding someone that gets you. That might be the trickiest thing when it comes to dating as an introvert, is finding someone that maybe not necessarily you can relate to, but someone that actually understands. So my husband, like I said, is the definition of an extrovert. He's textbook. And there are a lot of times when my lifestyle choices and his just don't mesh and we can get into arguments. But I think in the beginning, when we first started dating, he understood that I was shy and that I, didn't like crowds, and I was an overthinker, and it took me a long time to, like have a conversation and get comfortable with him. And maybe it's just his personality or the way that he is. He wanted to know more. He became invested in really trying to crack my code. And so he didn't care if he wasn't going to get it all right away, because it was going to take time. And so finding the type of person who is willing to go the extra mile and, wait until you're comfortable to share all your dirty secrets and get to know you, who you truly are. And sometimes those people are hard to come by. I've met a lot of people who don't give a shit and won't spend the time of day to really get to know you, or, like have to work for it. So finding someone that understands you, that gets you, and that's willing to put in the work. So I hope this was helpful for you guys. Maybe in the future, I'll get Quasi on and we can talk about how we met and what the beginning stages were like. So thank you guys so much for watching today's video, and I'll see you next time.